Hey guys, it's Lance at Mac Sound Solutions. If you've been following my videos on moving your user account to an external drive, some people have been asking me, hey, how do I get my plugins on the external and all my loops and sounds? So today I'm going to cover that, so let's get to it. And just a quick promo, I'm using the Acasis TB501. It's a Thunderbolt 5 enclosure. It's got a 2 terabyte Western Digital Black NVMe installed, and I have a discount code for you, link in the description. So I'm going to make the video in 3 parts. First, I'm going to cover Logic Pro and how to get that installed on your external drive. And this will work even if you're not using an external user account. You could still do this with just an external hard drive. And the drive should be formatted in APFS. Then I'm going to show you how to move your third-party plugins to an external drive and how to create a symbolic link, a Sym Link. And part 2 should work for people using different DAWs like Reaper. Each one has its own quirks. But to move your third-party plugins to an external drive, it seems you have to be running your user account from an external drive. And finally, we're also going to do this with Pro Tools. So first up, Logic Pro, we're going to install it. It's going to install to the internal applications folder unless you have it set to install on your external applications folder, which you can set in the App Store. For apps over 1 gig, they will install on the external. But all the sounds, the 80 gigs worth of sound library stuff, is going to install to your internal drive. And Apple will not let you install them externally, but you can relocate them once they're installed. And Apple generously allows you to download and use Logic Pro for 3 months for free. So that's what I did. And interestingly enough, it would not let me install it on the external drive. But maybe that's just the case with the demo, that they don't let you install it on an external drive. Because I'm guessing if you bought it on the App Store, they would let you install it on the external drive. But I'm not sure. But regardless, we're going to move it to the external applications folder anyway. So we're just going to move forward and install it on the Macintosh HD. You can move Logic from the internal Macintosh HD applications folder to your external applications folder. And you download all its sounds. You can then move your sounds using the Logic Relocate. Just going to show you really quickly. So sound library, relocate sound library. That's what I did. And then you choose the drive you want it to go to, right? So I could move it back to the Macintosh HD, but I moved my sound library to the external drive right here, my main user account. And what Logic did was it created a library folder, and inside the library folder, it created application support, and then it moved GarageBand stuff, 14 gigs worth of stuff, and Logic, 75 gigs worth of stuff. So it moved those from the internal drive to the external drive. So boom, you saved 80 gigs worth of space by doing that. And once you relocate the sounds, Logic automatically deletes them from the internal drive and creates a Sym Link. And I'm going to show you how to create your own Sym Links a little later in the video. So we're just going to have a quick look at the Sym Links that Logic put in place of the sounds that used to be on the internal drive. So we go to Library, Application Support, and you can see GarageBand, it has that little arrow on the folder, and Logic has a little arrow on the folder. Those are Sym Links, which is essentially an alias. So it just points that folder to its actual location, which is now on my external drive in the Library Application Support Logic. So there are all the sounds in Logic, 75 gigs worth of stuff, and GarageBand, another 14 gigs worth of stuff. So now all our sounds are on the external drive. And Logic is in our applications folder on the external drive as well. Now here's something else I want to show you. When I was doing this, I'm like, I could not find where Apple stores their component plugins, rather the audio units, right? I'm like, where the heck do they put them? They don't put it in the audio plugins folder. And a friend of mine, shout out to Jeff Rubin of Jeff Rubin Electronics. You can find him on Facebook. He actually built the mic that I'm using, a FET 47 clone. He builds vintage mics, guitar amps, guitar pedals. Check him out. He said maybe they're in the application itself. And I'm like, oh, you know, I didn't think of that. And sure enough, we're going to go to Show Packages, Contents, and bingo, there are the effects bundles. Essentially, all your Logic plugins, not the ones you install from third-party plugin companies, but the ones that get installed by Apple with the application, are in the actual application. So they're all here. So when you move Logic from your internal applications folder to your external applications folder, all the built-in plugins go with it. Every company has its own ways of installing plugins. Part 2, we're going to move our internal plugins to our external drive, and then they will be running from the external drive from here on out, thanks to creating a Sym Link. But first, I have a little bit of a story to tell you. And maybe plugins, if they're not like virtual instruments, should just reside on the internal drive because they don't take up a lot of space. But I did get this to work. Okay, guys, I'm into like day 3 or 4 making this frickin' video. And I have learned the hard way something that's important. When Logic went and created this library folder, when I relocated all the Logic sound libraries on my external drive, I thought, okay, that's where our audio plugins folder should go that's in the library on the internal drive, right? Library, audio. And I redid the video because originally I put that folder in my external user account and my plugins were working. And it turns out that's where Logic wants it to be. It doesn't work if you just put the audio folder in there. It has to be in the user account, library, audio. There it is, okay? So I made the video originally doing it this way. You know, then I installed Logic, and Logic created that library folder that's outside of my user account. So I thought naturally, because it's just like it is on the Macintosh HD, that's where this folder should live. And I created the Sym Link. I thought I was done. And then after I was done making this video, I went to use my plugin that I always use on the audio to get it at the right level for YouTube, and it wasn't there. And I'm like, what is going on? And I had to go back, and thankfully I bounced my video yesterday or the day before with the snippet in there that I decided to discard. And I was able to re-import it into the video. Anyway, long story short, the audio folder with your plugins has got to live on your external home user account. And if you don't have an external home user account, guess what? You can't move your plugins to an external drive. They have to live on the internal because somehow they're tied to your user account. Got a dog barking out there. So anyway, back to the video. First thing we have to do is make sure we have our library turned on in our external user home folder. So we just go to View Options and Show Library Folder. You have to be logged in to your external user account to be able to turn the library folder on. Anyway, so we got our library folder inside our username library. That's where we're going to be moving our audio plugins to. And currently there is an audio folder in here that's completely empty. And this is for VSTs and audio units, components. It's not for Pro Tools AAX plugins. We're going to do that in a second part of the video. First, we're going to do these plugins. So now we're going to open up our Macintosh HD. This is not in the user's account. This is in the library that's on the root directory of Macintosh HD. So we're going to go in here, and I've already got it marked. There's our audio folder. There are our plugins, Components, HAL, MAS, VST, VST3, right? And it's got a bunch of other stuff. Now what I found is if I try and bring this over here, this folder can't be modified or deleted because it's required by Mac OS, okay? So we cannot move this folder when we're logged into the external user, even though it's an administrator. We have to log in to the internal user to do it. But again, you need to have your library folder visible when you do this. Otherwise, you won't have the library folder to copy it to. It'll be hidden from you. Okay, so we're going to log out of our external user account. Well, we're not going to log out. We're just going to switch users. And I have fast user switching turned on up in the menu bar, which makes it easier to go back and forth between your users. You can set that up in System Settings under Control Center, Fast User Switching, Show in Menu Bar. So now we're going to go to my internal user account, and I just switched. I was already logged in, but you have to type in your password. Okay, so now we're going to open up the same two folders. We're going to go to Macintosh HD. We're going to go to Library. There's our audio folder that we want to copy. And now we're going to go to our external drive, Users. There's my external user, Lance Mini. Go in there, and there's my library folder. I'm going to open that up, and you can see there's an audio folder in here already. It's got nothing in it. So we're going to just drag over the audio folder from the internal drive library to our user library on the external drive and erase this folder. Already exists. Would you like to replace it? Yes. Okay, so there it is with the purple dot. And as you'll see, all our plugins are now moved here. Now, you know, how's your app going to know that the plugins are moved? They're not. They're going to keep using this folder over here. But this is where we trick it with a symbolic link, a Sym Link. So we can now delete this folder. And of course, back up your stuff before you do things like this. So I'm going to put in my internal user password, and I'm going to delete the audio folder. It is now gone, okay? So what we're going to do now is create a Sym Link of this audio folder. And we can do this logged into our external account, or we can just stay logged into the internal account, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to open up just so you see this appear. When you create a Sym Link, it goes into the user folder of the user you're logged into, which I am logged into, Lance Int, my internal user account. So we're going to use Terminal to create the Sym Link, which is in your Utilities folder on your Macintosh HD. And we do that by typing in ln space -s space. And then we're going to drag over the audio folder. That is in my external user that we moved over there. Okay, we're just going to drag it in there, and that puts the whole path, just like this, right here. Stretch it out a little bit there. We can see the whole thing. It's exactly the same as this. Much easier than typing it. You can just drag the folder into Terminal. So now I'm going to hit Enter and keep an eye over here. You're going to see that the Sym Link is going to show up in Lance internal user folder. I hit Enter in Terminal. There it is. Okay. Oh, it even showed up with a little purple dot. So now we're going to move it to the internal library where the original audio folder used to be. So I'm going to drag it in, and you got to make sure you're not copying it into some other folder. You just want it to go into the library. It's going to ask you for your password because you're playing around with the operating system drive. And there you go. You can see the little arrow is there. And if I double click this, boom, look at the path, okay? It's pointing it to our external user library audio. So now our plugins are located on the external drive, and we can now install plugins, and they're not going to go into the internal drive, but they're going to go on the external drive. But when our DAW software goes to look for plugins, it looks on the internal drive, and it will load the plugins that are on the external drive. So now we're going to do Pro Tools. Okay, so Pro Tools is installed, some of its stock plugins. We're going to go to Library and go to Application Support on our Macintosh HD. And there's our Avid folder that we want to move and everything that comes with it. If you look in the audio folder, that's where Pro Tools plugins are located. And those are pretty much all the stock plugins, plus my Limitless plugin is in there as well. So we're going to copy it to our external drive library folder / application support. And you can see the only things in there is Logic and GarageBand, and now we're going to put Avid in there to join them. And I just sped this up, so now that it's copied, we can go delete the original from the application support folder on the Macintosh HD. And we got to type in our user account password and then delete it. And now we're going to launch Terminal and create another Sym Link. And I'm just going to have all the folders open that I need, including my user account on the external drive, so I can see that the Sym Link is in fact created when we put in our terminal command. So we type in ln spacebar -s spacebar. And now we're going to grab our Avid folder from the external drive library application support Avid. So we'll grab it and we'll drag it into terminal, and you're going to see the Sym Link show up in my user account folder. Make sure terminal is the frontmost window and then hit return on the keyboard, and bingo, there's our new Sym Link. Now all we have to do is copy our Avid Sym Link into the Macintosh HD application support folder. Macintosh HD library application support. Make sure you don't put it inside some other folder so it's just visible once it's copied in the application support folder. We type in our username and password, and there we go. Our Sym Link's in place, and it points to the external drive library application support Avid. And now whenever we install new plugins, hopefully they will go to the external drive, and our plugins will run off the external drive going forward. Now, while you can copy Pro Tools to the external drive, you can't run it off the external drive. It'll say it's damaged. So you have to keep the Pro Tools app in the internal applications folder. So now we'll launch Pro Tools just to test it out, make sure everything's cool. And I'm launching it for the first time because I updated it to the most recent version, 2024-10. And of course, you need to have your iLok software installed, and Avid's going to ask permissions to access your external drive, blah, blah, blah. So we're launching Pro Tools. It's scanning all the plugins, and we're in. No errors, no issues. So let's just open a session I'd created earlier before I updated, and we'll see if it opens okay. I just put a ton of my plugin Limitless all over 48 tracks, and there it is. Loads no problem. It's amazing how well the Mac Mini M4 Pro does with this. I mean, that's a lot of Limitless plugins. That is a master bus mastering plugin. That's a bit of a CPU hog, and the Mac Mini M4 Pro handles it like a dream. And the opposite of a dream is a nightmare. And as you can see by the Dolby Atmos box with my brain in the middle, Avid is trying to beat on my brain, because every time I install something new, it puts files all over the place. So let me show you, and this is the last thing I'm going to cover. So after installing a few more things, Native Instruments, Kontakt, and a synth that you get for free in Pro Tools, all of a sudden this shared folder showed up on my internal Macintosh HD in the users folder. And you can see I got 4 gigs of a synth in there. I got Pro Tools Factory Essentials, another 3.5 gigs. So you cannot move the shared folder. It is part of the system. But what you can do is create a shared folder on your external drive next to your users folder, just like Apple does it on the internal drive, and then create Sym Links for anything that's chunky. Things that are small, you don't have to worry about. So I moved these 2 folders, the Hybrid Keys and the Pro Tools Factory Essentials, and then I created Sym Links. I deleted them, and then I created Sym Links for both of them. So we're just going to do that really quickly. We get out our terminal and we're going to make 2 Sym Links. One for the hybrid keys and one for Pro Tools Essentials. So boom, I made that one. It shows up in my users folder, and now I'm going to do another one for Pro Tools Factory Essentials. Hit enter. There it is. So there are 2 Sym Links. We're going to move them back to the shared folder on the internal drive, and now those point to the actual folders that are now on our shared folder on the external drive. Thank you, Avid. So hopefully you get the gist now of creating Sym Links and moving these things around. Everything's got a quirk. Everybody uses their own install processes and locations. Logic was actually pretty darn simple, right? But Pro Tools is a cluster, to put it mildly. I still use Pro Tools. I don't bother doing all this. I have Pro Tools installed on my internal Macintosh HD on my Mac Pro, which is where I use it. And I don't use a lot of virtual instruments and stuff. I mainly mix live concerts for television. So that's what I do for work. I do like to play around with synths and stuff, so I'm going to install that stuff on my Mini, and that's why I'm doing it here and showing it to you folks. So hopefully you got something out of this video. Hopefully it helps you. If you got questions, please leave comments about, how it went for you or what issues you're having and what DAW you're using, etc. All right, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. This is not really a Pro Tools or an audio channel. This is more of a Macintosh channel, but I am going to start an audio channel separate from this channel. But anyway, people were asking me to do this, so I just thought I'd get it online and show you how to do it. And I'll see you in the next Mac Sound Solutions video.